when I first interviewed Mick Jagger, I said, I'm not going to ask you about your sex life. And he said, well, that would be refreshing. And then 5 minutes later, he's talking about his sex life anyway.
I'm Pat Healy, and this is 4-4, where we get in rhythm with our guests by asking 4 reverent questions and 4 not-so-reverent questions. Our guest today is Steve Morse, the senior rock music critic of the Boston Globe for more than 30 years, and he authored the course Rock History for Berklee Online, and he has basically interviewed every musician worth knowing, including Bruce Springsteen, Bob Marley, Stevie Wonder, U2. Who haven't you interviewed, Steve?
Well, I have not interviewed Elton John, and I have not interviewed Bob Dylan. Yeah, I've been really fortunate as a senior rock critic at the Globe. I did Bowie and did the Stones 6 or 7 times, Tom Petty 7 times.
Who are some of the most treasured interviews that you think back and say, I can't believe I actually got to speak to that person?
Neil Young, would be up there. He doesn't do very much. I was very fortunate to get him and reached him on kind of a personal level after we talked. I have a son who's got mild cerebral palsy, and he's got 2 sons with cerebral palsy. So we had a kind of a father-to-father talk. It was incredible, completely dropped our roles as music business people. So that was an honor to talk to Neil. Well, Bob Marley, that was a big one, about a year before he died. The original Wailers, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, and Bunny Wailer, I interviewed all 3 of them at different times. So I'm kind of honored to be able to say that. David Bowie was a big one. Madonna, I must confess, it was during her yoga phase. I happened to be into yoga at that time too, so we had kind of a nice conversation about that. Stevie Nicks, 4 a.m. my time. She does, late night interviews. Pink Floyd, David Gilmour, it was 10 a.m. in London, and it was 5 a.m. here. And I said, David, how are you doing? He says, well, I'm drinking my morning tea. He says, how are you doing? I says, well, I'm drinking my evening beer. I haven't been to bed yet, because I didn't go to bed till an average of 4:30 in the morning. It was a night job. Interviews were my favorite part of the job. Reviews, you're an observer. You go to a concert, you're not a participant. You're an observer. You're kind of commenting on somebody else's work. But when you're interviewing them, you're one-to-one. You're engaged. That's where the excitement, comes for me. Reviewing is the deadlines, particularly a daily review. You're writing a lot of daily reviews in 40, 45 minutes, and it's hard to exactly write what you want to say, in that short amount of time, whereas you can craft an interview, you have more time to do it.
I remember an anecdote about you having an exchange with Jim Morrison also.
Well, I saw him at a club in Brighton called the Crosstown Bus, which only had 2 weeks of shows because it was an illegal place. They didn't have an entertainment license. And 1 week the Doors, and then the next week was the Jay Giles Band, known as the Hallucinations back then. The Doors was fabulous. They set up tinfoil all over the walls and go-go cages, just like some Sunset Strip kind of club in L.A. Jim got completely trashed, and afterwards, he was trying to find the bathroom, and there was no backstage bathroom. It was such a small place. So I was coming out of the bathroom, and he was weaving towards the bathroom, and I just put up my hand kind of to steady him and say, hey, this way. And he saw my hand and started coming at me, and we high-fived.
Steve, do you remember the first musical act you ever wrote about?
Well, I remember the first one that I saw, the Rolling Stones, in 1966. It was at a high school football stadium outside of Boston, and there was a riot. It was with Brian Jones. I was very excited. I love Brian Jones, and they left after 20 minutes, and later I interviewed Keith, and I said, Keith, what the heck happened that day? And he said, mate, I don't even remember what happened in Boston. It happened all the time. So, it was a big moment, and he didn't even remember it. First one for the Globe was Vassar Clemens and David Bromberg, a country fiddler and a blues guitarist, and that was 1975.
In this profession, a lot of what we do is like seizing a moment. Are there any times that you found a way in regardless and just started talking and made an article out of it?
More getting into, like, say, backstage parties or things. Like, there was one time at the Grammys out in LA, I walked in with Chris Novoselic of Nirvana. I had a leather jacket on, he had a leather jacket on, and I was hanging out with this guy from the Toronto Sun, and he had a leather jacket on. All three of us are very tall, and we got to the door, and they saw Chris, and they just assumed that we were with him. He just followed right on his coattails. Sometimes you'd have to be wily.
I seem to remember a story about Roy Orbison when you just saw him sitting in a room and you're like, I'm going to go talk to him.
That was right after the fire that lost his home, and I think, his son. I think there was a death in that fire, and he didn't do any interviews, I think, for the next while after that. And yeah, he was playing in Cambridge in Harvard Square. The owner of the place, Jonathan Swift's, took me down the street is where they had the backstage room, and Roy was sitting in a corner, and the owner, Jonathan Swift, says, well, this is as far as I can take you. You do the rest. And I just sort of got my gumption up and walked over and said hello to Roy, and turned out he was a great guy. We hit it off. I did not know he hadn't done an interview in so long. We didn't have the internet then where you can read all that kind of stuff. But I got a call the next couple days from, media in Nashville saying, how the hell does somebody from Boston get it? We've been trying to get an interview with him for like a year. They were furious.
What's the best rock t-shirt you've ever had?
Old and in the Way, the Grateful Dead side project. And I wear it around, and people they don't know what it is. They just see this old guy like me wandering up with his t-shirt, and then they go, oh, step back.
Have you noticed anything changing with what the students are bringing to you as far as what you're learning from them?
Well, that's another great question. I've noticed a change in tastes. I'd say 10, 11 years ago, someone like Billy Joel, for example, was often put down as, maybe sort of a schlocky kind of guy, MTV sort of cheesy guy. But now they look at Billy as somebody who's one of the great songwriters. They see his body of work and, how he still continues to sell out stadiums. He plays stadiums every summer without a new record. He hasn't put out new music in 20 years, but it's the older music that still sells, still brings people in. They're really respectful. They see him as kind of a street-oriented guy, whereas years before, they saw him as kind of this cheesy guy. And on the other side of the spectrum would be U2, now viewed as kind of cheesy. 10 years ago, they were considered as kind of the apex of the great arena and stadium band. Now with Bono, he's trying to save Africa 1 minute. He's become a little pompous to them. And that one album, remember they in cahoots with Apple, he downloaded the album, and a lot of people didn't like that. They thought that was very intrusive. I've seen the tastes of some of these acts really change in the eyes of the students.
What is your go-to crank up song to start the weekend?
I'm actually a Sin City AC/DC Power Age. I like the old Power Age album. I like hard rock, and I was on the nominating committee of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for 7 years, and I was the first one to nominate AC/DC when they became eligible. So
wow, nobody else was doing that?
I'm sort of proud of that. I couldn't get in a couple other choices. I tried to get in, the Jay Giles band. I think deserve it, and Graham Parsons deserves to be in. He, helped the Byrds, write that whole Sweetheart of the Rodeo album, and that started country rock, and then that led to the Eagles and whatnot. And Graham deserves to be in there, but so far no luck. But yeah, the crank up would be the Power Age record.
Will rock and roll live forever?
Well, I won't, but rock and roll will.
Steve, thank you so much for your time. It was great to have you.
I enjoyed it, Pat. Thanks for the good questions. You remembered some stuff that I forgot.